All right, everybody. I got the nice Restream logo right over me as I'm testing new software. I'm not sure I'm going to use these guys. Let me know if you can hear me. I have changed some settings around. But I think that this should be a little bit better in the future. I'm trying to see if this is even connected. Check, check, check. Yeah. Seems that it is. I have no idea if the sound is as good with this, but we'll shortly get to it. I was just doing what Bitcoin did with Danny this morning, my time, evening his time in Australia. And we talked a lot about the power curve, some things I want to get to today. Some, I hope, helpful things to talk about. You know, I've been trying to figure out the best way to explain the power curve for a long time, and I might have figured out the best way yet. So I'm going to wait just a second, or a couple more people drop in here. Let me know how well or if you can hear me. Because I'm getting mixed signals here. As I stream with the Restream logo on my face. Thank you, Crypto. Felix, glad to hear it. It should be a little bit better than my old setup. Hopefully it's okay. Keep me posted if it's not. Or if you have audio, visual issues, anything. All right. So I think I got a good way to show this now. As you guys know, I've been trying to improve this software day by day. You'll get access to it soon. This is my old evolving regression. All right, evolving regression. And it works on the multiple over or under price. Okay, and as you can see, back in the day, we had more extreme moves over or under price. All right. To be clear, or to be precise, we would go, if you look here, let's make it easy on ourselves. The most extreme moves, okay, could be already back in 2011 and 2013 could be 7, 8x the trend, or go down to 0.1x the trend. Okay? But with the power curve, and I know people keep asking, you know, is the power curve broken? Is the power curve broken? It doesn't work like that. That's not how, this is not a trading view line on a chart. This is more of a regression mathematical formula that you find how good it is based on this R squared right here. Notice as Bitcoin moves on, right? The green line, as volatile as it still can seem, it's actually getting closer to the black line. All right, it's not as volatile as it used to be in the old days. Okay, we could put 90-10 here, and this is sort of a better guide. But even with 90-10, notice how even in 2022, we didn't hit the 10 percentile, which would have been a 70% discount at $14,000. We never hit that. We only got to Peter Zions $17,000 overvalued at $16,000 on Joe Rogan. So the point here is to show you that even though people think Bitcoin is volatile and scary and not a real asset, it's actually moving closer to the curve than in the old days, where it would be way over or under, and this evolving curve was more wacky. Right? It's moving closer to the black line, not closer to the outside lines. Okay. Now let's compare that. This is where I hope the light bulb can click. Let's compare that with Magnificent Seven. Same type of a chart, evolving regression, exponential. But you'll notice something different. All right, it's the same timeline since 2008. Since 2008. It's a great R squared, even better than Bitcoin. 99%, 98.7% R squared. Bitcoin's a power curve. Stocks, bonds, they're exponential curves. Straight line on log scale. Log linear. But notice the bands. All right, with Bitcoin, the green line gets closer to the black line, actually, even though it seems really discounted here, and it is. Magnificent Seven also following a very good trend. Okay, it just is. It is what it is. But notice what can happen relative to the trend. You can get mega moves. All right, and we could have just seen it here. $10 up, 20% down from the trend, or here, 40% up, 40% down. Now, of course, Bitcoin is still grows faster, has even larger moves, even though it's getting close to the trend. But notice when you actually track it, you could say that something like the market cap of the 7 largest tech stocks, or 6 largest plus Tesla, becomes more volatile over time, not less. Okay? And so what's the other way to track that? All right, so we do have the evolving regression exponential for the Magnificent Seven. We have the evolving regression in power for Bitcoin. Well, we can do the quantile regression, all right, for Bitcoin. And then we get these nice smooth lines. We can go into the future. And now, with the quantile, which is statistically better, you can hug the tops and the bottoms better. And then with the quantile, right? So what's the difference? With my exponential, I'm keeping whatever turns out to be those max moves. They stay the max moves. All right, so 7x the trend, 8x the trend. That's what this top line number represents. Okay, or a 90% discount, 0.1x the trend. That's what the bottom line represents. But notice how it's actually not that helpful. Okay, and I've said this many times when I've shown it, but it's still nice to look at the multiples sometimes. But for the extreme moves, it's not that helpful. Okay, so notice in the tooltip that 0.1x and 7.7x, they stay the same. There's no change. See it in the tooltip? 0.1x on the bottom, 7.7x on the top. However, when we make a quantile, now look at the multiples. 35x on the top, 0.1x on the bottom. But now let's look what happens. The multiples get closer to 1. The multiples shrink. That's because a quantile regression, a proper statistical quantile regression, each line is sloped differently. And here we can start to see perhaps what is a true bound for Bitcoin's growth. And so what I'm trying to say is, though it might seem scary to a lot of you, and the world is geopolitically quite wild right now, if you back up, big picture, Bitcoin looks extremely cheap relative to the trend. It looks on sale. Never financial advice, but that's how it looks. And even if it goes lower from here, even if it drops down to, I don't know, 50K, what's going to happen is it's just going to change the direction of the bottom line. So the bottom line is just going to turn a little bit fatter. The other ones as well will go down too, but it's not about breaking the power trend. The power trend won't break until you see this R square go to, I don't know, 50% or something. Not even that, maybe 70, 80. But right now, this is a very good indication of what it's doing. And then to see how that actually looks in fact, this proportional growth, you put log scale, and then you get the straight line. So I actually think, and now by the way, here's a Quantile for the other mag, for the mag 7, but now Quantile. So I did evolving regression, all right, same thing where we have the multiples. So 40% over trend or 40% under trend. You know, this is not a denouncement of the stock market. These are for sure the best performing stocks. But as the AI trade gets a little bit crazier, if we go into sort of a .com style boom and bust, which I don't think we're there yet, but we'll see. We can also try to do not an evolving, but just like this, an actual pure quantile. But remember, on log linear, it's a curved. Power regression is a curved. And with stocks or any other financial asset, it's a straight line. And I think this is also interesting because it shows, again, a difference between Bitcoin. Notice some of these lines actually get wider, right? What's the multiple here on the 0th? 0.7x, only a 30% discount. 6, actually in log space it does get a little bit the same, but this one's going to be wider. 100. Let's look at the 100th percentile. 1.2x. 1.2x. What is it today? 1.5. In the future, 1.6. So that's the statistical difference between, say, what Bitcoin is doing and what stocks are doing. All right, again, the multiples collapse in Bitcoin. All right, they converge. whereas some of the multiples on exponential stay parallel or even expand. That's the difference. So just taking the best looking stocks in the stock market, or the most hyped, right? And again, don't get me wrong, you can get great returns here, 25, 27% CAGR. They actually become more volatile, slightly more volatile over time. The extremes grow, whereas Bitcoin's extremes collapse. Collapse might be a strong word, but they shrink. Look at that Q100. 5x back in 2020. 4. Right now it's 3.3. And you can see, by the way, that this is a much better way to look at Bitcoin, a power curve, than this one, right? Because just holding that multiple fixed from the early days, 7.7, which is what I'm doing, doesn't show us much. Power curves don't grow this way. So I think it's a key insight, and it should help people, with the Maalox moments, which I try to do in my research. As crazy as it might seem, as crazy as the world is, or as much as we want Bitcoin to be reacting to price or not, it's hanging out here. It's getting closer to the black line, or the 50th percentile, to be clear, the median, one of these two. It's getting closer to the middle. It's not getting closer to the outside. And that can be seen here. Again, contrast it with the stock market. The stock market, you expand the multiplication effect as time goes on. That's what compound growth does. You get more volatile. You get more outsized moves to the top, more outside moves to the downside. I really think this might be the most helpful analogy. Like, I haven't thought about it. It's taken me a while to sort of get to it. But if you look at these four charts, all right, Bitcoin, you can call this the multiplicative effect. Maybe I'll rename the chart. Versus Mag 7. And then the proper quantile regression of a power curve, proper quantile regression of an exponential curve. Both can be good. You can get returns from both. But Bitcoin is showing something like truly unique in the financial markets, which is pretty cool. Getting way less views with the restream here, maybe just because I'm on a free plan with the logo over my face. We'll see. I'm not sure if I'll keep this. If people think it sounds good, then I'm glad to hear it, because it's a little bit different than my other software. Anything happen over the weekend, guys? Let's take a look at the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. You can really see the scale here of what Ben Bernanke did versus, let's take Bitcoin off, versus the prior history. It's pretty remarkable. But you can see here that the Fed is just starting to inch up. Just starting to inch up. Doesn't mean that Bitcoin always has to go up. Remember, Federal Reserve went down for the last 4 years. Bitcoin went up. Sometimes they match up. They matched up here. But the bigger indication of what's really happening in Bitcoin is not from, I would say, the money supply. It's more about the power curve. Good evening, Tim. Let me know if you can hear this all right. I've been trying this restream, as you can see with the logo over my face. I was just talking to Danny from What Bitcoin Did, evening his time as well. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I think this is a good way to look at the difference between Bitcoin and stocks. Right? These rainbow bands get closer to 1 with Bitcoin. They can even get further away from 1 with exponential. Even the best stocks get more volatile. That's the difference between a power curve and an exponential curve. Good. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Samavana. Glad it's better. Glad it's better. It was a platform issue before. So, in my opinion, if you want to talk about geopolitics now, I think depending on how this goes, it's just a crazy world. It's going to be crazy to see what happens in the US elections this fall or in the Hungarian elections in April. But if Trump comes out of this looking well, I mean, he might be able to cut interest rates, not because just he wants to, because he wants lower rates, but he might be able to cut them because you'd actually get even stronger growth of the dollar. I mean, Putin is losing friends left and right. In the last 15 months, he's lost Assad, Maduro, and now Khamenei. I know it's way too early to say that there's any sort of a positive outcome in Iran. This is a huge, huge gamble. But well, as I've said, the dollar's always the best looking horse in the glue factory, right? It's actually too difficult to make a prediction of Bitcoin price versus the money supply. But Trump may have plenty of room to put the money supply higher. I notice this is slightly delayed, more than my other one, but that's all right. Anybody want to comment on the geopolitics of this past weekend? show you a couple charts on that. So we have global money, and you know I like to put it a little political, right? So the free world versus autocracy. Hoping the United States doesn't swing red in this chart, but remember, China's actually has a smaller share of this pie than they did before the global financial crisis. Russia's reserves are frozen. Hong Kong is what it is, percent there, and it's captured by China. Taiwan's on the other side with another percent. And then Iran is basically zero here. I mean, this is already overstated for Iran because it's official rates. Usually I use black market rates in my old engine, but I haven't gotten that over yet. So it's like Iran's zero. So, Putin's got weaker. All of his buddies are gone. It's just Xi and him now. And then if you look at the military spending, okay, much slower view, but their share is even smaller. Russia's actually bigger, remember? In money, they only had 1.3% of the monetary base, all frozen. In military spend, they have 5.6% of the annual spend. I'm going to see if I can even show this. Okay, so I might need to read people's comments because I actually don't know how to show it yet, strangely. Tim says Bitcoin holding up better than I thought after the weekend. Still early, yes. That's weird. I can't display it on my screen, or at least can't easily see it. I think Bitcoin's at the bottom, honestly. I mean, again, anything can happen, but statistically, we're at the bottom. We're just there. This is a more fundamental relationship of how Bitcoin will do anything, I think, than even geopolitics still. Depending on how this goes for Trump, I mean, he may get out of it with a stronger dollar, even people begging him to lower interest rates because of a strong dollar. I'm not saying that happens. Of course, the regime could hold and make it very painful for everybody. So I don't know for sure, but I am glad to see Putin's friends fall. Trump has given Putin every lifeline in Ukraine. And yet Putin can't come to the aid of his dictator friends. It's embarrassing for Putin. I mean, you can find all these pictures of him shaking hands with the Iranian leaders, shaking hands with Maduro, shaking hands with Assad. Assad's now counting his rubles in Moscow. Maduro's in a New York prison. Khamenei's dead. It's remarkable. not defending Trump, by the way, but I think it's more remarkable how the dictatorships can fall, how freely they can fall. But then the crazy thing to me is look at how big the United States is on this chart, right? 37% of the pie. If Trump gets on a sugar high, I think you could, depending on how this goes, you can see the Greenland discussions start again. What do you guys think? And then on top of that, you got the purges. You got the Chinese Xi's purges of generals. I mean, he's so paranoid. He's doing the classic purge everybody you think you can't trust. So it is really wild. Remember the exercise we did last week? Considering where we are and say we have an exact repeat of last time, right? Okay. Bumping along the bottom. Assume you bought here and then just waited to get back to trend. That in itself is a 200% CAGR. How long did it take? November 2022, March 2024. Year and a half. It was even faster here, although it retraced. But here it happened. 500% CAGR took 6 months, 7 months. I could stop it here, obviously, be less. 200% CAGR. I fully expect that's what we're in store for. Right? Might take a year, might take a year and a half, but we're going to get back to the trend. Checking on the old UTXOs. This is a really good one, I think, for the even taking off short term is better. All right. Hodlers in loss long term. 80-20, 70-30, 40-60, 40-60. Probably less than 30, but I think longer. I mean, 4-year cycle is totally intact, in my opinion. It's totally intact. Hello, Mishi. Sorry, I never know if I get your name right. Is it Mishi? Michael? Greetings from Hungary. I hope you're well. Inflation will rise massively because Hormuz down, yes. Suez will be next, then Gulf from Aden, Yemen, Maersk. So, totally correct. That's the other side of the picture. If Trump messes this up or this thing lasts 50 days or whatever, That is a big problem for inflation. Big problem. Michael, thank you. What do you think, Michael, about next April's elections? In Hungary. To me, Hungary and America are going to have some fireworks. I don't really know what to predict, but they're going to have fireworks. I'll show you this article over the weekend from the Telegraph, which is one of my favorite outfits. Again, feel free to, however you're feeling about this, I don't know. But this, this story that's been going around, this is not like Poland. Even with Poland, when they were going really, really to the right, my understanding that the whole state apparatus was basically captured by Fidesz, right? Fidesz. It's the most fascinating election in Europe this year for sure. It's what's going to happen in Hungary. Orbán will win at the moment, no oil. Let me get your thoughts on this. Again, this is just one perspective. It's let me find it. I'm sorry. But the sequence of events that's happened in Hungary and Slovakia over the last couple months is just like do you think that this is a opinion that might be expressed by the general Hungarian population? So again, this is obviously this Jay in Kiev lives in Kiev. He's a super supporter of Ukraine, but viewed in its entirety, the humiliating electoral downfall of Viktor Orban is a truly thing of beauty. Not only its Russian level of incompetence, but the speed at which it all occurred, with 15 years of regime hubris shattered in a spectacular comeuppance over the course of only a few short weeks. Number one, a massive Russian attack on Western Ukraine damages the Druzhba pipeline that supplies Russia-friendly regimes of Hungary and Slovakia with Russian oil. Number two, a month goes by as Hungary's oil reserves are depleted. Orbán demands Ukraine fix the pipeline that Russia damaged. I heard Zelensky in an interview over the weekend. It's just kind of funny. I mean, he doesn't lose his comic edge the way he was talking about this. But after Ukraine spends 2 weeks ignoring Orbán's whining, Orbán gets tougher, together with Slovakia's Putin sycophant Robert Fico, to threaten Ukraine with no longer sun and electricity, 30% of Ukraine's supply, and freezing winter temps. Simultaneously, Orbán releases press statements celebrating that Russia will be sending oil tankers to Croatia to save them. Further, Orbán proceeds to block Ukraine's $106 billion EU loan, which had previously been agreed. Number four, Poland and Romania then humiliate Orbán and Fico. Again, I know he's using strong words. I'm not saying Orbán seems to have no shame, but humiliate Orbán and Fico by offering to replace all lost voltage in the case that Hungary and Slovakia do cut off Ukraine's electricity imports. Then driving in the final nail, Croatia further humiliates Orbán by stating that no Russian oil will be allowed into its ports. Thank God for the Croatians right now, but Meanwhile, this whole thing just cost Orbán another 5 points in the polls, and this morning other opposition parties are pulling their candidates out of the race to allocate votes to Peter Magyar, the opposition that's already ahead by 18 to 20 points. Back in Slovakia, Fico is now facing calls for an investigation with Orbán gone and Fico muted. Eastern Europe may soon be free to really turn up the pain on Putin. Obviously, this is the ideal scenario. He's talking like it's going to happen. I certainly don't think it's going to happen, not without contest. Oh, okay. And I see your name too. Hungarian people are very split. Yeah. It's going to be fireworks. All I can say is it's going to be fireworks. It's a prelude to November in America. Trump has already backed Orbán. It's going to be an amazing thing to watch. The stakes, I think, couldn't be higher for Europe, for Russia, for Hungary. Another thing I talked about with Danny, which I'd say it's the best point that I made last year, is that I wasn't going to declare the 4-year cycle dead until January, February. If the price was at like 160,000 or something by then. And we see where it is. So the cyclicality is good. The fact that it's getting closer to this black line, not closer to the faraway lines, which is the precise opposite, or at least can be the opposite, of even something like the Magnificent Seven. That's the key. Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a fight. I mean, I don't see. I understand that it's also a rural versus an urban thing. The countryside versus the cities in Hungary, which is logical. I mean, it's kind of normal for a lot of politics in many places, but April 12th, month and a half away. You can also look at the difference of short term. So here, it's obviously a lot noisier chart. These are hodlers that have moved UTXOs within a half a year, basically. But this amount of red on the short term clearly matches this, clearly matches this, clearly matches this. So it's possible to come out of the red quicker, right? On the short term, but it's one of the longest sustained periods of, I'd say, a lot of red, right? We're at 4 months. Okay, most of the time, like this would be the only chance of a sort of a reversion. And it's not even really the proper period, right? Because we're just coming down. But what I'm saying is if we're in sort of a secular bull still, which I don't see at all, it could be maybe something like this where, okay, we've come down and now we're going to go back up higher after, some other further shock like we had in 2020. But that's about the only time. Otherwise, it was a smooth bottom, smooth bottom. Anything else, guys? Yeah, that's for sure. The entire world will be. This is actually a downside of Restream, is I cannot easily find how to put your comments on the screen. Maybe if I up my subscription plan. All right, what else could I show you today as the world reels? Show you GDP. Again, China is a juggernaut, right? Communist juggernaut, but here you actually see the global south, which is the gray, basically, growing faster. China remains a really big X factor here. I mean, Russia can't even get Pokrovsk, which is like 70 miles from Avdiivka, kilometers, whatever, which it took them years to get anyway. And then you have Xi sitting there as paranoid as ever, while Putin's buddies, and really Xi's buddies, all keep toppling. This century of humiliation that the Chinese are trying to pull themselves out of, Russia was one of these humiliators. Right? Russia took a lot of land from China, so never quite know how all this is going to play out. All I can say is I hope the U.S. doesn't flip red this fall. And I don't mean red as in GOP versus Democrat. I mean free world versus autocratic world. That's precisely what I mean, in case people were wondering. Let me see if there's any other charts. If you think about the 10-year Treasury, which the Fed, you can't say the Fed directly controls it. They control more short-term rates, but of course the overall correlation is always the same wherever the Fed funds moves. He's got plenty of room here after what Powell has done to try to pull rates lower again if he feels the need. But we're just going to have to see. We're going to have to see how the world reacts. Maybe people are going to be buying dollars. I don't have too much more for you guys on a Monday morning here, but I would say I keep trying to think of the best way to educate on the power curve, help people relax a little bit, touch grass. Again, Bitcoin moves closer to the black line, okay? If you do simple multiplication above or under the power curve, it's never going to reach these bounds again. They're just kind of fun to look at, like statistically getting 7-8x the trend, which would be, you know, 1,000,002 right now. 1,000,000 by the fall, 1,000,002. Those prices can happen in the future, but not this ratio, 7x the trend. So Bitcoin actually gets, you know, the volatility comes down. And then if you do the proportional same analysis for stocks on an exponential curve, the volatility actually can go up. To me, that's a beautiful plus in Bitcoin's arsenal of good characteristics to protect yourself in the market. Doesn't mean you can't make money with stocks. Doesn't mean you can't hedge your bets with stocks. But they do, you know, exponential trends are volatile. This is the point. You can go far above or under trend. And right now we're right on trend. So what that says for the AI boom, not exactly sure, but at least in this sort of arbitrary start date, which is the life of Bitcoin, this is where they're at. No problem, Michael. Oh, you're a farmer, huh? Good for you. Thank you for your contributions. All the best to you as well. So yeah, that's the lesson, guys. It's a crazy world. No one can predict the future, but we can look at relative risk. And as opposed to the fall, I see much less risk for Bitcoin coming in at these levels. Can always dip lower. We can always pull this down, but you're not going to break the power trend. This is not ABC, Elliott wave. That's not how this works. 96% R squared. All right, I'm going to stop it there. Maybe I'll get this logo off my face next time if I decide to upgrade this. But I think you guys could hear me better today, which is good, or at least clearer. So maybe we'll stick with this for a while. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a great week.